Live from San Diego, California, this is the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans, by the fans. With Josh Taylor, Justin Smead, Jason Eidsmo, and Mike Maciejewski, we're talking Chargers, Padres, and Aztec sports. It's time to let your voice be heard.
I'm going to have to watch the film, but, I think there's a little bit of, they did a good job of keeping us off balance of what they were calling in some of the plays. And some of the times it wasn't, the tackling wasn't great, and other times it was great play calling by them. They had a week extra to prepare for this game, so, they came out with everything. Hats off to them, but we just got to get better from this.
My final question is now tell us about Thursday night.
The good thing about all of this is it's a short week, so we don't got time to feel sorry for ourselves. I know Denver don't care, so, we have to get focused on Denver.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to get focused on Denver. From what we saw out of the Chargers and Chiefs game, are you worried at all? I mean, we're going to talk about the Chiefs game, don't get me wrong, but are you just a little bit worried going into Thursday night against Denver, the way that they played against the 49ers?
Well, it has to worry a little bit, the way we're banged up. And, the Kansas City game, let's be honest, guys, it's disappointing. We all thought that might have been a little letdown. But as Dwight mentioned in that clip, they had an extra week. I mean, we're sitting here battered and bruised, and this is a team off a bye coming into Qualcomm ready to get after Phillip Rivers, ready to put a game plan together, and they did their job. And what more can you say than they just executed better than the Chargers? We missed tackles. It was a poor game by the Chargers. That's all you can say about Sunday's loss.
Yeah, the missed tackles was the one thing that really bothered me the most. We got used to the Chargers tackling so well this year, and when guys would make catches, nobody's going to shut somebody down completely, but when we'd make catches, we would make tackles right away, and I was just disgusted. It was like they forgot how to tackle or something, and I think that might be a product of, I don't want to sound like I'm crying about injuries and stuff. Everybody has injuries, but when you don't practice, you get rusty on stuff like that.
You do.
Yeah, no, I think another big deal was, again, the injuries just catching up to us, man. And, at some point you have to see a drop-off. You can't keep playing at this high level. And the Broncos are playing at that high level, and they showed that on Sunday night.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it comes down to, playing a team at the right time. And unfortunately, we're not playing the team at the right time, in my opinion. I think the injuries that we have, over the first, 7 games of the season, I think have taken a toll. Like Jason said, I think when you have the second and third strings out there, they're a little step behind. Mm-hmm. And, they're not making the plays that our starters would normally make. They're not as talented, per se, as our starters are. Right. And I think, Jason hit it on the head when he said that, it's bound to catch up to us. And unfortunately, it did against the Chiefs. And hopefully, the Chargers can pull a rabbit out of the hat in Denver.
And Darren Anthony in the chat room, thanks for joining us, Darren. He mentioned that he thinks they were tired. And, they were on the field for so long. The Chiefs did to us what we do to everybody else.
I'll tell you
Absolutely.
what. I'll tell
they
you
took
what.
Our game plan.
The second that game ended, the other Darren, who was in our chat room a lot, texted me and said, we got beat at our own game.
Right. Yep.
That's exactly what happened. They controlled the game. They threw – I was – Alex Smith is a good quarterback. He's not a terrible quarterback. Let's not forget, the Chiefs are a really good team. They're not a crappy team. They're a good team. But their passes were all so safe. And I think that when we have, Richard Marshall out there and we have other guys out there who maybe don't have the skill level as our starters, they played back a little bit. They played a little bit softer, and they were able to just – every pass that he threw was so safe. It was such a safe pass, and we were letting them do it because we were too afraid of them doing something more.
I think that game manager label gets misused a lot. it doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback or he
No,
can't
absolutely
play.
not.
And I think people misconstrue that with other things, as in, well, he doesn't go for the big play. He didn't have to against our defense on this particular week of the because of the injuries and certain circumstances.
He kept throwing screens, and we couldn't make the tackle.
It was slant patterns and screens, and it was Jamal Charles all day long.
But he wasn't gashing us for 12, 15 yards.
But it was enough to
4 yards,
keep the time
6
going.
yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards.
And the couple things that I noticed, and both of it comes from the secondary, not having Brandon Flowers and Jason Verrett out there.
Very true.
It hurt our defense because, one thing I noticed, and I've brought this up in past shows and past seasons, that I hate when our defenders play off of the receiver. I like when they get up in their grill, they knock them off their timing.
Right.
And I think it plays a big part in the defense. And I noticed that, the likes of, I don't know, Sharice Wright. Richard Marshall was playing, 10 yards off of the receiver, and they'd take 5 yards, turn around, and boom, the ball's right there.
I think that's a little bit. It's a little bit wrong when you look at it that way, because because they're playing 10 yards off doesn't mean they're being aggressive. It's when they're playing 10 yards off and their first move is the back pedal.
Yeah.
That's when they're playing too soft.
And they do that all the time.
You see guys playing 10 yards off, but they're playing aggressive still, and I don't have a problem. It's not always where you line up, but if you're going to line up 10 yards off and then the second the ball snapped, you're backpedaling already.
Which they were doing.
Yeah.
That's what the key is.
Early on in the season, guys, we watched a lot of football this year so far, and what if the corners don't, when they're healthy and they're out there? Flowers has played 5 yards off the ball and waited for the receiver to come to him, like Josh was alluding to. He hates when they're 10 yards. I see your point, but that's a product of personnel on the field. And when you have a Richard Marshall that's not good with makeup speed, and maybe he's a better cover guy than a recovery kind of guy, then maybe you have to play those 10 yards in a particular situation.
Well, and what I've noticed from watching Brandon Flowers and Jason Verrett plays, you notice when they line up against them, they're like literally right there on the line of scrimmage, ready to just hit him right in the chest as soon as the ball is hiked.
Right, knock him off the ball. Yeah.
And a lot of the quick outs, the type that I can't even think of his name at the KC's quarterback at the top, off the top of my head. Thank you. But a lot of it is timing. He doesn't throw the ball deep down the field. He's kind of a dink and dunk type of quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to hit the receiver in the mouth right off the hike, because you're going to knock that timing off and prevent them from making those 5-yard plays down the field.
You have to dare a team like the Chiefs to beat you deep.
Yes.
You have to dare them to get a little vertical. And I'm not even talking about the 50-yard bomb. I'm talking about the 25-yard crossing pattern and stuff like that. You got to dare them. You got to dare him to air that ball out a little bit, and we didn't do that. And something that the Chargers seem to always do, Dwayne Bowe sucks.
Yeah.
Dwayne Bowe is a sucky receiver, and we make him look like he's a pretty decent receiver.
Like he's a Pro Bowler.
Whenever he plays against us, he had a decent game against us. He sucks. Dwayne Bowe sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
If he was my number one wide receiver, I'd be so upset because he sucks.
Yeah. No,
and we make him look like he doesn't suck.
Yeah, and I was looking through the stat line today, guys, and we talked about how we had to contain Jamal Charles, and for statistically we did. Statistically we did. He didn't rush for over 100 yards. I believe he only had 2 receptions for 12 yards. But like you said, Dwayne Bowe, 84 yards, which for Dwayne Bowe means 176 yards.
Game of his season. Game of his season.
But how many times did you notice watching that game that Casey tried to give the ball back to us? Their receivers were dropping balls. Their runner runs out of bounds when he's got a perfectly 25-yard clean stretch of field.
On a play that he should have been down for a 7-yard loss.
He should have. I totally
happen?
agree.
I'm watching that and I'm going, how did that happen?
And is it because of the injury bug? Is it the lack of playing time that these guys have had on the field? Is it a lack of talent? What is it?
Oh, God.
I just want to be real careful that we don't sit here and cry about injuries all the time. In our view, the Chargers are the most injured team in the NFL because that's the team that we all watch, and we notice every single injury.
Well, it's not only our view. If you listen to social media or if you listen to even ESPN said, the Chargers are beat up, but they're still beating teams.
Right.
Crappy teams.
I think that did catch up with us, and the only good thing I could say is we have 2 losses this season.
Right.
We have 2 losses against 2 good teams, and we have 2 losses against 2 good teams that we very well could have won.
Look, guys, we're not going to see the potential of this team until after the bye week. I think we can all agree to that. We need to get healthy, and we need to get healthy fast.
Absolutely.
And I think we all can agree on that. It's been 1 week after another, guys. It's been next man up mentality, and Josh is saying, and I kind of agree with you in a way. Yes, they are catching up to us, but like they say every week, don't let that be your excuse. Next man up, play your position.
Right.
Yeah, of course, play your position. The Cavell Connors of the world, do your job, and we won't have this issue.
In addition to that, Jason, to kind of piggyback on it, I kind of wrote an article which Mikey absolutely loved. It could be worse. And as I go through that article, SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com, I talk about teams right now that are 1-6, and as a fan, it could be a lot worse.
Oh, yeah.
A lot worse. And the other thing, if you look back, when we started this season and we're talking about the early half of the schedule, if I could tell you right now that we're going into Denver at 5-2, wouldn't you all be excited?
Exactly. That's another thing that somebody texted me right after the game and said I would have signed up for 5-2 at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely.
I would have taken that. And, we could be Bengals fans right now. I mean, they started out the season, they didn't think they were going to lose another game, and look how bad they look.
Dude, they got shut out. That was embarrassing.
So
pretty bad. No, you look at it that way. It's you do got to count your blessings this season. What's happened? We've beaten the teams we needed to beat, and we should have beat. KC is a prime example. I don't call it a letdown because that's a tough division game, but at home, you should win that ball game. You let one get away.
You sure sounded like we were going to win it before the game started.
I know. I was hyped up on coffee and caffeine and my Folgers in my cup. But you know how it goes. As a fan, I really thought the Chargers last Sunday would come out firing. Just take it to them from the opening bell and say, "Hey, we're here. We're the division leaders right now. Bring the noise to us," and that's what I reiterated. Bring the damn noise.
You sold me.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, before the game, you listened to it. You listened before when me and Jason were talking, and we were kind of skeptical. The Chiefs are a good team, and we were saying, this is going to be kind of a close game, and then, Justin gets on and kind of puts us in our place, and you made me a believer. I was like,
we should be a believer.
After listening to Justin, man, this thing is going to be a blowout.
We like the passion.
Yeah,
sure
and I was definitely not trying to, miscue any people's comments or offend anybody. I was so hyped up on the fact that people were saying, "Wow, this game, you got to be careful and you got to be caught." Why? You're at home. You got the division lead. You're in the driver's seat.
Right.
And that's why I got animated. People were coming on saying, or people were commenting, and it wasn't me getting mad at that. It's just the fact that I'm like, why do we need to, be shiesty at home and not bring our A game? Like, why should we be scared of the Kansas City Chiefs? I don't know why at home you should feel that way. You know what I'm saying?
And I agree with that. I think we should have. That was a game we let go.
Right.
We let that one go. We should have won. But what can you do? You can only look forward. And like someone mentioned, we've lost 2 games by 4 points.
Yeah,
2 games by 4 points. I mean, in no way should you as a Charger fan feel worried that this team is falling apart.
Right.
It's not like we lost, like you said, like the Bengals. It got shut out 31.
Whatever. Big Brian, I totally agree in the chat room. I just hope we're not in a position not to rely on other teams to win or lose at the end of the season.
Absolutely.
Totally agree,
Darren
guys.
Anthony says we need 5 more W's. Man, we got how many games left? That's
a ton.
7, 9 more
fine,
games.
Yep.
5 wins.
5-9 is doable. It's
5 out of
doable.
9.
We're going to get healthier, guys. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we got Jake Hefner from BoltBeat.com to give us his take on the Chargers versus the Chiefs.
Okay, you fantasy football players of San Diego, you know what time it is. It's your time on the Fantasy Corner of San Diego Sports Junkies. I'm your host, Steve-O, and thank you for tuning in every Wednesday to enjoy some fantasy football smack talk with myself and the rest of the Sports Junkies. Now that preseason's over, I encourage you, our valued listener, to tune in weekly for your starts and sits and my sneaky free agent pickups of each week. So throughout the week, hit me up on Twitter at FantasyCorner17, or you can email me at thefantasycorner17@gmail.com. And always stay locked in Wednesdays on the Fantasy Corner at www.SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com/fantasy. Bring it.
But they can't get me down. Got my own self by my side, and mentally we gotta be free. I see the wickedness coming full speed.
Are you looking for a bar for your next sporting event? Come to Cali Comfort Sports Bar in the heart of Spring Valley, where they are passionate about sticking to the true barbecue traditions. Using their unique low and slow method, you are guaranteed great barbecue no matter what you order. From pulled pork to tri-tip, football to MMA, Cali Comfort is your one-stop shop for all your sports and barbecue needs. Find them online, CaliComfortSD.com.
To be the best, you got to beat the best. It's going to be a lot of excitement in the stadium. You know, it's Thursday night primetime football.
Going against a Peyton Manning-led team, there's no denying that there's a little more move over Brett Favre. I don't know what the word is, awesomeness to those games.
Number one of all offenses that we face this year.
Like he's standing on a stepladder. Malcolm Floyd.
Does he like playing against these Broncos or what?
Keenan Allen in there. Touchdown, San Diego.
He does it again.
What's up, guys? This is San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans.
By the fans.
And we are back live with Mr. Jake Hefner from BoltBeat.com. What's up, Jake?
Gentlemen, happy Wednesday to you all. How we doing?
Happy hump day.
Well, we were doing better last Wednesday, but we're still doing okay. How about you?
You know what? I'm feeling more optimism from the psych ward that I had to check myself out of on Sunday. I think I've been making progress.
Hey, did you get your counseling from Dan Cilio?
Yeah, we heard you on the show this week.
I'm pulling up to my work, I hear Jake Hefner on the line with 1090. I go, man, Jake gets up early.
I was just a little fired up, dude. You know how Dan gets sometimes.
You were
with
passionate.
some of the comments that he makes. It's sometimes you get a little bit emotional. I think I calmed down just a little bit and ready to roll.
That a boy.
So, Jake, obviously, it was a little frustrating to watch that Chargers-Chiefs game. The Chargers struggled mightily at, making tackles when it mattered, struggled getting off the field on third downs. What are some of your takes that you took away from that matchup?
It was a frustrating thing to watch on Sunday, especially Chargers come back at the very end of the first quarter with a spectacular catch from Antonio Gates, and you take back the lead going into the half. So you think from the shaky first half that the Chargers had, you think, okay, we have a lead now. They're going to go into halftime, and they're going to make some defensive adjustments. And it turned out it was completely the opposite, because in the third quarter you only had the ball for, I believe it was around 1 minute and 15 seconds. The Chiefs came out from the get-go and put together a 10-minute drive to start the third quarter. Chargers just really could not get any rhythm going whatsoever, and they were getting beat off the line on both sides of the ball, pushed around, missed tackles, fundamentals were not there. Phillip Rivers was missing open receivers, something that he really hasn't done a majority of the season. You had to bend in the running game a little bit. Brandon Oliver only ended up having 16 touches in the game. Costly penalties. I mean, we could go on and on and on about the Chiefs game, but it was just, if you sum it up into just one sentence, it was just a lack of execution. And, Andy Reid has a great record coming off of a bye. The Chargers should know that. He's now 15-2 coming off of a bye. And Andy Reid outcoached and outplayed Mike McCoy and the Chargers, and there's no two ways about it.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the Chargers were outcoached. lack of the poor tackling was very surprising to all of us. But what were your idea about the fact that the Chiefs seemed like they played? They called very, very safe plays, and we just kind of let them do it. We didn't get very aggressive defensively. Our secondary kind of let them catch the ball. They let them keep catching those screens, and we weren't tackling them. They didn't really try anything down the field. They just kept giving they kept taking what we would give them, and we kept giving it to them.
Yeah, I don't really understand why you saw kind of a lack of a pass rush or any creativity from John Pagano on defense. I don't know if that had anything to do, with players kind of going in and out of the game. On the same series you had, I believe it was Cavell Connor, Corey Leggett, and Gilchrist all go out in the same series. And then, of course, the big one, you have Brendan Flowers go out in the second quarter of the game with a concussion. But I didn't understand it. It was, we all saw the bad game that Richard Marshall had against Dwayne Bowe. I don't know if he didn't feel because of his secondary that they were allowing those type of plays that he felt he had to drop more into coverage rather than add some more blitzes and creative packages in order to get to Alex Smith. But you're absolutely right. I mean, they were doing the safe plays, and they basically out-Chargers the Chargers, or however you say it.
Yeah.
They basically took our game plan. They kept Phillip Rivers off the field, and that's how you execute properly against teams that have high-octane offenses.
Jake, I totally agree with you in the fact that I believe Richard Marshall, at minimum, was not playing aggressive when it came to the wide receivers. And we kind of talked about it at the beginning, and Jason makes a good point. It's not always the fact that they're not playing aggressively enough, but it may be just the fact that they start 10 yards off the ball and then they jump the route. But in my opinion, when I watch Brandon Oliver, when I watch Jarrett Johnson, they're up in the receiver's grill off the snap, hitting him in the face, knocking him off timing. But when I watch Richard Marshall, he's consistently 8 to 10 yards back when the ball snapped, and then he's backpedaling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alex Smith clearly chose to pick on Richard Marshall. It was almost like what Cromartie used to do in the old defense, where he would play that far off the wide receiver, and you would just be able to beat him on short 5-yard routes and just progressively move yourself down the field. And then once or twice, of course, you get burned down the field a little bit, but of course the missed tackling above all. I mean, I can't remember exactly who the receiver or the running back was, but when you had the guy in the backfield dead to rights, and somehow you don't tackle him. I believe there was 2 or 3 Chargers that were in that immediate vicinity,
yes,
and he runs down the field along the sideline. And honestly, I mean, we could say this. The game was played, the final score could have been a lot worse than what it came out to be.
Yes.
If there's not dropped passes from Chiefs receivers in some plays, or a wide receiver not stepping out of bounds when there is nobody in front of them, this could have easily been a 2-touchdown differential game against the Chiefs. So the Chargers are actually lucky to have been in the position that they were in to possibly win the game. We can just go ahead and admit that, because the Chiefs just had a solid game plan, and they beat us everywhere.
Dwight Freeney, who I've been very impressed with the way he's played this year, and I think he's definitely brought a lot to our defense, even though I think he's playing more plays than we had expected. He looks like he's out there on one leg. You watch him running out there, and he's obviously limping, and he's obviously favoring one of his knees. Is that something that is it going to improve, do you think, or is that something he's going to be fighting with all season long?
You know what? I think it's going to be something he's going to be fighting with all season long, but the way that you make it better is that you have to have someone to take the pressure off of him. And that can come from anywhere, and hopefully that will get better once Melvin Ingram comes back, because honestly, from the other edge, Jarrett Johnson is not the pass rushing linebacker. He's in there for strict run support. That's what he does best. But off the other side, when Jerry Atauchu is not healthy, you've got Reggie Walker, who doesn't really command a lot of attention or respect. Tariq Williams doesn't do the same. Cordero Law doesn't do the same. So you need someone back there who's going to have to come off with that speed and that power in order for the offensive line to give them extra attention, because right now they're able to focus everything on the Chargers' best pass rusher on the outside linebacking position, and that's Dwight Freeney. So, he's trying whatever he can to get to the quarterback, and of course we talked about it last week. He's playing more snaps than the coaching staff would like him to do. But again, it's only going to get better with time. He needs somebody, and whether it has to come from Corey Liuget or Kendall Reyes, the pass rushing has to come from a different player in order to give him a break.
Yeah, and you mentioned Atauchu being not playing, and it looks like he's going to miss the game this week because he is listed as doubtful. Where do you think that pass rush is going to come from if it's not coming in, if Freeney is getting all the attention? Who's going to relieve some of the pressure on him?
It's got to come from the middle. It's got to come from Corey. Corey has to have a similar game this week against Denver the way that he had against the San Francisco 49ers in preseason. It has to be that dominant because Peyton gets the ball out so quickly and will progressively just pick us apart the way he can with any type of defense that shows him what the blitz disguise is going to be. It has to come up front because he can get those passes out 2 or 3 seconds. And in order to disrupt his timing, not the wide receiver's timing, but his timing, and make him shaky, you have to beat him up the middle. So the 3 guys, Lismore, Liuget, and Reyes, have to have the games of their life tomorrow night and generate that pass rush from the middle.
Hey, Jake, it's Justin. Now, that being said, I agree with you there. Obviously, you got to have Liuget be the dominant force, getting to Peyton, pushing the pocket. Do you see John Pagano doing he likes to get tricky with Peyton, but do you think he's shown all his cards to Peyton at this point? He's played him so many times. Do you think there's anything else he can throw at him that would disrupt Peyton Manning and maybe force him to make a couple turnovers tomorrow night?
Well, sure. I mean, you remember, think about this for just a second. I mean, if you took the Chargers defense last year that beat the Broncos in Denver,
right,
and you put it on a piece of paper and put it next to the Chargers defense that is right now, even injuries included, you'd still say that the Chargers have a better defense at this very moment right now and more things to throw at Peyton Manning because Peyton didn't see Dwight Freeney last year. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He's never had to face him before. So Pagano has that ace up his sleeve. Aside from the fact, I believe it was actually, coincidentally enough, we had Sharice Wright and Richard Marshall as our starting cornerbacks last year in that game against Denver. It would be absolutely huge if Jason Verrett is able to make the start for this game because we definitely need all the help we can get. Again, with guys up the middle, Lismore, some of the young guys in rotation, Kenny Powboy, who had a good game against Kansas City. And again, Corey Liuget was playing injured all of last year. Corey's actually playing the best football he's ever been playing this season. So, again, if he can have that similar type of game against San Francisco and do the things that he needs to do, Pagano, I think, has a laundry list of things that he can throw at Peyton. And I don't think that Peyton has seen it all. I don't think Pagano has shown it all. And the Chargers, going back years and years and years before Pagano was even the defensive coordinator, they've always seemed to have his number and be the team to get him off of his block. So, yeah, I think Pagano definitely will have a game plan as well as the rest of the team.
Yeah, Jake, sorry, it's Michael. Here we're having a little discussion here in the chat room, and we were talking about how can we get pressure to Manning, and we're talking about maybe sending Eric Weddle to blitz or sending some kind of corner to blitz. I don't see that as a viable option because who do you trust to leave covering Demaryius Thomas, Julius Thomas, Wes Welker, Emmanuel Sanders?
Yeah.
So, realistically, what do you think the Chargers should do defensively? Do you just send all that pressure up the middle? Do you just try to create pressure with your front three? I don't know. I'm looking for an answer, I guess. What would you think, in your opinion, would be the best way to attack Manning? Sorry.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think there's a way defensively to stop Peyton Manning at all.
Okay.
The way that you stop Peyton is you have to limit him, which means your offense has to do exactly what it did last year and keep Peyton Manning off of the field. The less touches that Peyton can get, the better. If you look at the Seattle game this year, The only game that Denver has lost, they controlled the ball for 38 minutes. I believe they only allowed 20 first downs for Denver, and they were insane. They got off to a fast start, which is exactly what the Chargers need to do. The Broncos had to abandon their run game when they were down 17-3. So you made them one-dimensional in that sense. You have to take away every single weapon that Peyton Manning can possibly get, even if it's in the most mediocre type of sense. So the Chargers, even if they're playing keep away, their red zone offense has to be spectacular. You have to score touchdowns against Denver in order to beat them, because if you can control the clock and score when you have those long type of drives, you can have a dominating performance on offense. And for a guy like Peyton Manning, who can shred you in one play, like we did see at the first offensive snap in the third quarter against San Francisco, he can do that in seconds. And so you need to keep him off the field as much as possible. That is how you beat Peyton Manning.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, our rookie, Brandon Oliver, is going to be a huge part of this game on Thursday night. Obviously our run game is what needs to work well. If you remember last year against Denver, Ryan Matthews had a huge game. And, I think the running game is going to be a huge, huge focus for us. And if we can get that running game going, it's really going to help, Phillip Rivers, the rest of the offense, to maintain and extend drives, which keeps Peyton Manning on the sidelines. But at the same time, when Peyton Manning is on the field, we have to get pressure. Whether it's Kendall Reyes, whether it's Dwight Freeney, Jarrett Johnson, I don't care who it is, they have to get happy feet. They have to get Peyton Manning dancing around in the pocket, running for his life, because the offense alone can't do it. It's got to be a total team effort, and I think offensively and defensively, we're going to have to play a pretty perfect game in order to beat the Broncos, in my opinion.
Yeah, I had dropped a little hint on Monday saying that I was going to tell you that if the Chargers were going to get a win, who would the player of the game be? And it would be Brandon Oliver. Brandon Oliver is who I predict on Thursday after the game, should the Chargers win, talking up on that podium with Deion Sanders, Rich Eisen, and all those guys. Because he has to have a spectacular game. It's a lot to ask of an undrafted rookie, but I don't foresee in any sense of the word that he is not up to the challenge, because he totally is. And you have a lot of pressure coming at you if you're Phillip Rivers. You've got DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller that currently right now lead the league in sacks, 15 split between them.
Right.
So they are going to be bringing a lot of pressure that Phillip did not see last year. So you need to slow that down by opening up holes in the run game, throwing in the screen passes that I think we've been calling for all season long.
Yes.
And especially a guy like Oliver, who can exploit the open field so well and make the first guy miss. It's gonna start and end with Brandon Oliver. That offense is going to run through him, and Phillip Rivers will be the cherry on top for that offense. So, and again, like you touched on, the running game has to be huge, and Brandon Oliver has to be the catalyst of it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, especially if you looked at how the 49ers played. First of all, Colin Kaepernick is a shell of what Phillip Rivers is talent-wise. And, the Niners really have more of a power back system with Gore and Hyde. So getting a guy like Oliver in the open space, I really agree with you there, Jake, because, like you said, we have to control the clock. That's really the recipe to beating Peyton Manning, is controlling the clock, getting him off rhythm, letting the cobwebs grow as he's sitting on the sideline.
Yeah, it's funny just because of what you're talking about with that type of defense, and the way that San Francisco runs theirs. It almost seems like the way that Kaepernick has, or how they've changed their offense is because of the wide receivers that they have. On paper, they don't have bad wide receivers between Williams, Crabtree, and Bolden. And whenever Vernon Davis comes back, they have a lethal combination of weapons. But it seems just like this season they've almost kind of abandoned the run and leaving Frank Gore in the dust a little bit and trying to, give more responsibility to Kaepernick. But as we saw, their offensive line, in short, was absolutely decimated before that game even started, and they lost their center during it. So, of course, when you have no protection from your offensive line, it's going to break everything down.
Yeah.
The offensive line and the defensive line have to win the battles on Thursday night. Well, they have to protect Phillip Rivers.
The Chargers,
no question.
The Chargers know what it's like to lose their center. Obviously, with losing Nick Hardwick, we can totally understand. But I think the big difference between what you saw there in Denver last week against the 49ers, the 49ers defense is beat up as well. I don't want to use that and say our defensively we're better, but the X factor is Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback than Kaepernick. And, yes, they did abandon the run, and that's a huge mistake because the one way you're going to beat Peyton Manning is by controlling the clock. And so not only, obviously, is Phillip Rivers going to have to be on point, but Brandon Oliver is going to have to dominate the rushing game. And it's going to be huge for the offensive line to open up holes and dominate as well because, like you said, with their pass rush, that was something that they lacked last year. So it'll be exciting to watch for sure. I mean, that game is going to be extremely exciting to watch. The Chargers and Denver have always had some crazy games. I mean, you remember, what was it, 2 years ago, we go up there and we're up 28-0 at half, and then they come back and win like 34-28. I mean, the games have been exciting, and, Thursday night football games have sucked all year long. I don't expect this one to be a blowout by any means.
No, it shouldn't be. It should be an extremely competitive game, especially with the stakes that are on the line. Completely different from anything of last year, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the mentality for both teams. Denver still has a sour taste in its mouth for Denver or San Diego coming to Denver last year and beating them and humiliating them, quite frankly. But the Chargers now understand who it is that they're going up against and where they are at after the Kansas City game and seeing what their performance is like. They know for a fact that Denver is the one team that they cannot drop any games to whatsoever if they want to win this division. So both sides of the ball are extremely motivated, and of course we all know it just for some reason against Denver, since Peyton Manning has been the quarterback, it's always just seemed like the Chargers are physically, mentally in the worst possible situation, but these are always the games that Phillip Rivers seems to shine and have his best games, and somehow or another the Chargers are able to pull it out. I don't know how they do it, but Phillip Rivers gets up for these type of games and against these type of opponents. And for playoff opponents last year that the Chargers ended up facing from the playoff opponents the year before, they had a great record against it. So against the better teams, you may not believe it from what we saw last week or, some of the defensive performances against Oakland, but the Chargers get up for these type of games. And how can you not, how much higher can you get up for facing Peyton Manning across the field? So it's going to be a very exciting game. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, one thing that we're kind of we're talking about all the ways, all the things that we need to do to beat the Broncos. One of the things that we all need to remember is the Chargers have a pretty damn good team too. And,
no, absolutely.
The Broncos aren't going to be able to just show up and win. It's they're going to have to do a lot to beat us too. Now we've seemed to have kind of discovered the same formula that we're talking about we need to do to beat the Broncos. That's the same formula it takes to beat the Chargers, apparently. But going into this game, I know you said that Brandon Oliver is going to be a big key because they have those big pass rushers. Do you see an actual, a weakness that can be exploited against the Broncos besides, maybe running on those speed rushing defensive ends? Do you see something the Chargers can exploit?
Absolutely, a little bit of G&G, Gates and Green. Danny Trevathan is basically out for a good amount of time. So they're missing one of their best middle linebackers. And whether this is coming from Ladarius Green or Antonio Gates or Eddie Royal over the middle, you're going to have to battle Chris Davis. Chris Harris, excuse me. Chris Davis is our corner. But Chris Harris, who's an outstanding slot corner for them. But they are susceptible down the middle. Opposite of Talib, you don't really have a solid opposite corner there. So if you get a nice mismatch between Keenan Allen. I'm assuming that Talib would be covering Malcolm Floyd. But either one, pick one or whichever corner that Talib is, whichever receiver that Talib is not covering, go for the other one. If Keenan Allen is fully recovered and is feeling healthy from his groin injury, and if Malcolm Floyd can stretch the field, there's all kinds of ways that this Denver defense, even with their bought comedies with T.J. Ward and DeMarcus Ware, can totally be exploited. Because let's not forget, we didn't have Malcolm Floyd on the offense last year either. So there is an advantage there for the Chargers to take a big shot down the field.
Hey, Jake. Let's also not forget that ever since Dwight Freeney signed for the Chargers, he's been licking his chops to hit Peyton Manning.
Yeah, he's. I think he's pissed at the fact that it's had to take this long because he was out during the 2 games against Denver last year.
Right.
So if he's got anything left in the tank, he's going to plug in his reserve and everything that he's got in order to put his helmet in the crown of the 18 in the middle of Peyton Manning's chest. He's fired up for this game. I'm sure that he's probably said something to the team as far as what this means to him in the locker room and getting them riled up around him. I'm sure DJ Fluker has probably taken the reins under the offensive line and talked about how they need to protect Phillip. So everybody is up for this game. Make no mistake about it. The Chargers are not going into this game weak-minded, downtrodden, or thinking that they cannot do it, because they have every ability and thought process in their heads that they are going to go into Denver and they're going to do exactly what they did last year, and that's beat the Denver Broncos in primetime football.
Hey, we're getting ready to get an actual score prediction from you, but I have a quick, it's a little bit off topic. Steve Williams, what happened with him so far? He's been a little bit of a disappointment. He's been a little bit, we haven't really seen a whole lot. I know he might have had, I don't know, has he had injury problems or has he just not played up to what everybody was expecting this year?
Well, he's actually been kind of outplayed. Since Jason Verrett arrived, he's kind of been outplayed in that spot. So when you have, all 3 of your corners healthy, you have Sharice Wright and you have Brandon Flowers on the outside, and when you can put them all 3 on the field, Jason Verrett will, of course, man the slot. Steve Williams hasn't really shown that big of an ability to play on the outside, so he's kind of been limited to slot duties only. And, of course, last week, he went out of the game. He had a groin injury. He's questionable to play tomorrow night. But to be perfectly honest, I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of him. I know he had one bad game. I think that he came in, I believe it was against Jacksonville. I can't remember specifically what it was. But, it's still a learning curve for him because let's not forget this is his first year really on the field. He didn't play at all last year because he tore his pectoral muscle in preseason. So much like, Melvin Ingram when they go out or, Johnny Troutman kind of still developing and, they really haven't seen that much playing time. Even though we think that all of our draft picks for some reason in the past have been completely healthy their entire career. So let's just, give a little bit of benefit to the doubt. There's still going to be a learning curve with Steve Williams in his certain situation.
Jake, before we let you make this prediction, I want to really quick mention Steve Williams is on the injury report this week. I don't know if you saw that with the groin injury. And really quick, I want to run down the injury report with you. Steve, let me know if you think these guys are going to play or not. Atauchu is doubtful. What do you think? Out? In?
I don't think he plays.
Okay. Cavell Connor probable. Playing, right?
I'm sorry.
Cavell Connor is probable, so he's playing.
That man is a machine. He's ready to roll. It looked like he was in bad shape when he went off the field last week, and then for some reason he was able to come back, so he's ready to go.
And then the last one I'm going to ask you is Jason Verrett, playing or not playing?
I think he's going to give it a go. I think he's going to be able to play.
Okay, and I'm sorry, one more thing. I have a question here in the chat room from Big Brian. Mm-hmm. He wants to know, what do you think of the ESPN Marshawn Lynch trade talk?
It was funny because I read this, and there were some Charger fans that believed it was legitimate. They're talking about it. There's been word that the Chargers are going to trade Brandon Oliver for Marshawn Lynch. And I was like, no, it's not happening. It's not happening. It reminded me of, I don't know if you guys remember this, when we had Big Marcus McNeil at left tackle. Hacksaw decided to stir up a story that said that we were going to be trading him to the Indianapolis Colts for a second-round pick, and which was unbelievable because then it got like national news behind it, all based off on a rumor started by him. So all this is just fabricated news to stir the pot a little bit, get people excited. I mean, but hey, if the trade was really going to go down, I don't know, man. Marshawn Lynch, he's 28. He doesn't look, I mean, it could be the way that Seattle's used him this year that he's not, you're not seeing that many explosive plays on him that you saw last year. But I don't know, man.
Do you think we could have persuaded him with a couple bags of Skittles? I think it would.
That might have got the deal done.
I think if you did, that would have been his signing bonus.
There you go. Perfect. Maybe,
money,
yeah.
That's how you get over the salary cap problem.
Lifetime
so
supply.
You're still in a good position.
Right.
Yeah. You say, basically, Marshawn, we're going to give you the entire Skittles factory, and then you come over and you play running back. I think he's here in a heartbeat. You don't even have to trade Brandon Oliver.
He would look good in lightning bolts, though.
Mm-hmm.
But most people do.
All right, Jake. So you know what time it is, brother. It is time for your prediction. Chargers, Broncos, Thursday night football, divisional matchup. It means a lot. This game means a lot. Let's not forget that. I mean, we have a chance to get back into first place and get that tiebreaker, tentatively speaking, over the Broncos. So what's your prediction, and who is going to be your standout? Is it Brandon Oliver, or is it somebody else?
I still believe it's going to be Brandon Oliver. Again, he has to play a huge part in this game. There's just no two ways around it. We've talked about what he has to do and how the Chargers have to utilize him properly in order to slow down. And, I mean, it works in two folds with him because you take away pressure from Phillip Rivers at the same time that you're slashing that defense. So he undoubtedly has to be the player of the game for the Chargers. Again, now the emotion is starting to come out. We've run down statistically everything about this game. This is pivotal for the Chargers. Let's not also forget, not that the Chargers are looking ahead at all, but next week you go into a place that you haven't won in 3 decades. So you have to take this opportunity to get back on top of the heap before you make that stretch into the bye week and get your guys healthy to come back out. But this game, emotions are high, tensions are high, players are ready to roll on Thursday night football. Chargers 28, Denver 24.
Wow.
Nice.
I like it, man. I hope you're right, man. I would love nothing more. It excites me to watch Peyton Manning get demoralized.
Yes.
It excites me. So, Jake, I hope you're right, man. And as always, I appreciate you being a part of our show. The fans love you. We love you. So, have a good evening. Enjoy cheering on those Chargers. And, we'll see you next Wednesday, my friend.
Absolutely, gentlemen. And hopefully when we speak next week and when we speak to the fans, that it will definitely be a victory Wednesday for sure.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, brother.
Jake.
So we're going to take a quick break, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this Thursday night football matchup. Chargers versus the Donkeys.
Donkeys.
Business project that is due. Maybe you need business cards to help your business stand out. We at San Diego Sports Junkies got you covered. SK Digital Imaging can do it all. Give our buddy Sean K a call, 858-408-0732. SK Digital Imaging, from business cards to the bigger project. SK Digital Imaging and our buddy Sean K will get your printing done right.
Okay, you fantasy football players, the stadium Diego, you know what time it is. It's your time on the Fantasy Corner of San Diego Sports Junkies. I'm your host, Steve and thank you for tuning in every Wednesday to enjoy some fantasy football snack talk with myself and the rest of the Sports Junkies. Now that preseason's over, I encourage you, our valued listener, to tune in weekly for your starts and sits and my sneaky free agent pickups of each week. So throughout the week, hit me up on Twitter at FantasyCorner17, or you can email me at thefantasycorner17@gmail.com. And always stay locked in Wednesday on the Fantasy Corner at www.SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com/fantasy. Bring it.
San Diego, stand up and represent for your very own NFL Gladiators, the San Diego Superchargers. 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 SANDIEGO.
All right, Bolt fam, we are back. This is San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans.
By the fans.
And looks like we got a caller. Caller, this is the San Diego Sports Junkies. What's going on, man?
Yeah, I was wondering in fantasy in a standard scoring system Yahoo League, if you had Gronkowski as a tight end, and you had Forsett, Ellington.
So what's your question? So you have Forsett, Gronkowski.
I've got Chris Ivory and Mark Ingram sitting on the bench, and I need to get a tight end for my bye week with Gronk. I do have Marshall, Brandon Marshall, Calvin Johnson.
So you're in the market for a tight end.
I'm thinking about trading Chris Ivory, even though he has a good projections coming up, and he's probably going to be getting the ball just for 1 week to get a good tight end, even though I have Marshall, Brandon Marshall.
So you're willing to cough up Chris Ivory right now for a tight end?
Yeah, it's the numbers aren't that great on the trade, but the upside could be.
You know what, brother? I think if you already have solid running backs, you need to pull the trigger, get your tight end, and because Chris Ivory's, he's on a good offense. They like to run the rock, but he does share some time with Chris Johnson too. So, I mean, that guy pounds. But I mean, if you're really in desperate need of a tight end, I'd do that.
Well, I think the upside, yeah. I think the upside is good on Murto. Another question, start sit in another league. Since Dante Robinson has the running back, wide receiver, even in flex leagues in more than standard system Yahoo leagues, would you take a chance and bump, if your receiving option was DeAndre Hopkins, would you bump him in place for Denard Robinson and then start other running backs with Sammy Watkins as your flex receiver?
I would definitely start Sammy as my flex, and I wouldn't bump DeAndre Hopkins only because I think he's a stud and he's going to go on and on. But hey, buddy, you actually called into the wrong show. We did our fantasy show earlier. Not that we won't answer your questions, but the fantasy corner starts at 5:30. We're in the middle of the San Diego Sports Junkie show talking Charger football. But we do appreciate the call, and I definitely will answer your calls 5:30 every Wednesday with Steve-O. It's our fantasy guru. But we do appreciate the call, bud. We really do. We're just talking a lot of Charger football right now.
Well, I hope they win as well.
Yes, sir.
I think the defense will step up.
What was your name, bud?
All right, sorry about that. I hope the screening might be a little different. I didn't know.
No, what's your name, buddy?
Still Small.
Oh, Still Small. Hey, well, thank you very much for calling. We love the calls. I just wanted you to know at 7 and past, it's a different show. You're the man.
All right, have a good one. Go Chargers.
Go Chargers. Thank you, bro.
That's awesome. Poor Steve-O.
Yeah.
He misses out on everything.
Justin can do it all. Jack of all trades.
Yeah. Jack of all trades.
The second he started talking fantasy, we all just looked at Justin and said, guess what, buddy? This one's yours.
Yeah, he asked some good ones at the tail end there, so I had to do some thinking on that. But, yeah, good questions.
So, guys, that opens up our phone line, 619-866-4567. If you want to talk Chargers, Broncos football.
And not fantasy football at this time. Yes, sir.
We are talking Chargers football.
Chargers.
So, I mean, what do you guys think about this, Chargers-Broncos matchup? Obviously, I don't see it as a must-win. I don't see it as a must-win game. But at the same time, if we can pull this one out, it bodes well, looking in the next three matchups in the bye week.
Why are we keep saying stuff like pull this one out and stuff? That's like we're the inferior team, and we're not the inferior team here.
Right.
One team's got to win and one team's got to lose. But let's stop saying we need to pull this one out. We need to play a perfect game and stuff. They need to pull it out too, and they need to have a perfect game too. Sorry, Mikey, I cut you off.
That's okay.
Mikey's over here.
Respect the finger. Respect the finger.
No, but like you said, I don't think it's a must-win. I don't think, even though Darren Anthony disagrees with me in the chat room, I don't think it's a must-win. We'll be 5-3, still ahead of the Chiefs, slightly behind the Broncos. And
then the whole AFC picture, we're still in good shape.
Yeah, and I expected us going into the season to split with the Broncos, to win at home and lose away. So if we lost, at Denver, it wouldn't surprise me. I thought we were going to split anyways.
Right.
But, again, a must-win, too early. And, Jason, I do see your point. Let's not walk into saying we better do everything perfect to win this game.
No.
Right.
The Broncos have to show up as well.
Yeah, no, it's
and they're not unbeatable. They're not going to finish 16-0 because they already lost once.
They're not better than us. The better team doesn't win every game.
Right.
No,
they
are not better than us.
Well, do you think the Chiefs are better than the Chargers?
No.
Oh, well, then there you go. That's a perfect prime example of what happened on Sunday.
So let's stop talking about we need to play this perfectly. We need to squeeze one out. We need to go into Denver and steal one.
No. Stealing's okay to say, I guess. You do steal one on the road. You're on the road, you steal wins. But for me, this game counts as 2 wins to me.
Yes.
It does, in hindsight.
Right.
It's a division game on the road. Now, you say you steal this, quote-unquote, on the road. Now you get them back at the queue of sometime down the road, and you got that in your back pocket because you got the home field, and things might have changed at that point in time, more injuries or whatnot. But you do get a win in a hostile environment on a Thursday night. That, to me, makes up for the Kansas City game, and also gives you a win in the win column for the Denver game. It gives me, in hindsight, 2 wins, just because it's such a huge win in the division.
You got to be real careful when you get to the 8th game of the season and you're starting to talk must-win, because when you say must-win 8th game of the season, what happens if you lose? Then is the season over?
When we were 2-5 last year, or whatever it was, those were must-win games. This is not must-win. Right. I'm not saying you want to rely too much on your cushion, because you got to keep winning at some point.
Not must win, but it would be a big win.
Of course, 5-2 to drop to 5-3. The sky's not falling still, people. We know that.
And this game is much more important than the Arizona game was.
Yes. More important than the Seattle game was.
Right, exactly.
Because it's the next game.
And not only that, but it's
AFC.
division. It's division, and
course.
it's a team that's directly ahead of us and all that. But it's not must win.
No.
And we got to stop looking at this like we're the inferior team, because we're not.
Right.
We're not
the inferior team. But if you want the social media world to give us our due respect, because
which will never happen.
Before the KC game, people were giving us a lot of props. Then we lost that game, and it's kind of reversed. You want to stand out in the AFC? You knock out last year's defending AFC champion in the Denver Broncos in their own house.
I'm not concerned what social media thinks of us.
Yeah.
I'm only concerned with Chris Berman. He thinks about the Chargers a whole lot, and he loves us.
I'm concerned.
So that's the only guy I care about.
All the social media that follows us on a daily basis.
Gotcha.
We got a phone call coming in. Portland Bolt fan coming in from Portland.
Oh.
Go ahead.
What up, Brandon?
What's up, Portland?
Yo.
Portland's on the air.
What's up, man? What do you want to talk about?
Tomorrow I am going to my buddy's house, and he's a big-time Broncos fan. It's his birthday. I'm actually bringing him a Broncos mini helmet and everything, so it's going to be painful for me if it's a blowout, that's for sure. I mean, I don't know for sure. I mean, I know we can win. I don't know for sure that we are going to win, which I'm usually a lot more confident going into games, but I at least hope we give them hell. And like you guys said, it's not a must-win, but it sure would be nice to beat up on them a little bit and send them a message for the game in SD later in the year when it's really, really going to count.
Well,
and, they already had their bye. They got a pretty long stretch. They got to make it through the season without injuries, and they're not young at a lot of key positions either.
And I think why a lot of people are cautious, like myself, and it sounds like you are as well, is because we are beat up a little bit. And I do agree with Jason. I think we are a better team, but I don't think we're the better team at this very second. If I say that, because of our injuries, if we're healthy and we go into this game, I have a ton of confidence that we can go in and win this game. But I'm cautiously optimistic right now.
Yeah, if you go in with a loaded gun, though, I mean, you know damn well we can play good football. And, and it does, like you said, it just brings you down a notch and back to reality when your starting corners against Peyton Manning are, questionable to play. So
just like Jason always says, not get too high, not get too low. I'm just kind of that cautiously optimistic level right now.
Right.
If we win that game, it's going to be friggin' phenomenal. But if we lose it, it's not going to be the end of the world because, we still have, 8 games following that. Brandon, who do you think is going to be, your standout? And, give us a prediction.
Who really has to stand out, I think, is Donald Butler. He's been getting picked on a little bit in pass coverage, and I really think he's the X factor up the middle. Obviously, our D-line, their job is to clog a blocker, so guys like him can make a tackle. Well, he's really got to make some tackles tomorrow.
Good point. He's been kind of on the downside lately.
I think we're so used to him playing so solid. I think him and Teo have a really good relationship, so Teo being out might really, mess up that communication. Connor's pretty new to the team, so he obviously doesn't have the same, communication factor with Butler that Teo probably does. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to a good game. Like I said, I hope we give them hell. They have a long season ahead of them, already having had their bye, and we have a nice little kickback vacation stretch coming up to get healthy. So, I don't know too many teams that would be sitting 5-2 with the positions that we've lost, and we're doing pretty good. So, keep it positive, and we just got to keep the faith, and I think we can do it.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I hope we do have a great game. Like you said, avoid that blowout and show that we can play on a national stage. So thanks for calling, bud. I appreciate it.
All right, guys.
All right, Brandon.
Thanks for the call, man.
Keep calling in, my friend. All right, guys, that opens up our phone line, 619-866-4567.
He brought up a good point. He did. With their stretch, they have to go through a gauntlet.
What we're going through right now, they could very well be going through at the end of the season. And I would much rather be struggling with injuries and all that stuff now and get all these guys back healthy.
Another thing you brought up was they do have a lot of older players. And I'm not saying they're going to get hurt. We don't know that. But they're right. He's right. You have to think about these things going forward. We get a nice... we get Miami after this, and then
Miami, the bye week, and then we have one game in 23 days.
Right.
That's
so
amazing.
We have a lot of time to get healthy. And when I was looking at the schedule before the season started, I liked where our bye sat because you're going to have injuries. Yeah. And I would rather have the bye later in the season where you can get healthy for that stretch run than like Denver. They had it the very first bye of the season in week 4.
Right.
They don't have a break for the rest of the season.
Right. Nope.
So
that's taxing.
I like where our bye sits, and I think it's really going to help us, in that stretch because our schedule does get tougher as the season gets on. The last 5 games are against potentially 3, 4, maybe even 5 playoff teams.
Yeah, and I think, like you mentioned, the next game is against Miami. I think that's the important game in the schedule. Although I'm not saying this one's not important. It would be a great win. I think, again, we'll face one of the last few teams that we know is inferior to us, even though we've struggled in Miami for a long time.
Right.
So, get healthy. Take this week. You're going to have a long week because you have a Thursday game. And I know that everybody's complaining about the schedule, playing 2 teams off bye and then having a short week. The Broncos have a short week too. And, we'll do.
They played on Sunday night.
Yeah. We'll go out here. We're going to play this game. Hopefully the Chargers come out with a victory. And then, like I said, it gives us time to get healthy for Miami because that will be important going to the bye on a positive note.
Absolutely. Guys, share your thoughts. 619-866-4567.
Quick shout out to SoCal Travis. He his phone ran out of juice, but he threw a quick prediction in there before he left. He's got the Chargers winning 27-24.
I want to also shout out some of our newest followers. We got Bolt Squad here at Bolt Squad. I want to thank you for following in, and hopefully you're listening to the show. Guys, something that we don't talk about in regards to listening to our show is you can download the Spreaker app. It is free. Go onto your smartphone, download the Spreaker app. You can search us, San Diego Sports Junkies. Follow us. You will get an email when our show goes live. So that's the best way to have a constant reminder that that we're live, and then join in the chat room, join the conversation, like Portland and the rest of the guys, Darren Anthony, Big Brian, SoCal Trav, and so on and so forth.
Portland
we appreciate all that.
He just actually chimed in on the Miami game you guys are talking about. He says Miami won't be a cakewalk, but with a week and a half to prepare, we should beat them, and that's absolutely true.
Well,
absolutely.
That's the thing with Miami, though, and I think he was kind of alluding to it. We've always had problems with Miami, and it's on the road, and we did this last year, and we lost, and I don't want to take Miami for granted either. Right before a bye week, that's a game that you almost want to call a must-win because you can't drop a game at that potential point in the season to a team like Miami. And that's going to be a tough game. They're a good football team.
And that's before the season. I wrote an article previewing the entire schedule, and that was a game that I thought we were going to lose because, like you said, we've struggled with them.
Something about them.
I mean, I have a friend that's a Miami fan, and we've bet so many times thinking easy money, and man, I got to buy this guy lunch every freaking time.
Well, and the tough thing, too, about losing a game right before the bye is that you got, 2 weeks that you got to sit there and just let it ferment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just going to be eating at you for 2 weeks until you can finally take on the Raiders at home. But let's get back to the Denver game. As far as the Chargers and the Broncos, they've always played very close games. It seems like divisional matchups in general are very close. But we've also had Peyton Manning's number for a number of years. We've always played Peyton Manning very tough. We've always gotten to him. We've always gotten to his head.
His big head.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, whether he was in Indianapolis or in Denver, we've always played Peyton Manning extremely tough, and there's always been a player that's come out and stood out and made the plays happen to put us in a position to win.
Absolutely, and I don't know if you're ready to get into some predictions, but I'm going to go ahead and throw mine out there for this game. I know we like to save them for Sunday morning, but since we're not doing a Sunday morning show because we're playing on Thursday. I got an interesting player of the game, and I'm going with Sean Lissamore.
Okay.
And the reason why is I think he's going to have to get his big fat paw up there and tip a few of them balls that he likes to throw 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. And that's going to lead to some interceptions by, maybe Darren Butler gets a couple tip balls. Maybe, Marcus Gilchrist. Somebody gets some interceptions because of Sean Lissamore getting that push up the middle. Don't give Manning a pocket to step up into. Make him throw off his back foot. So I'm going player of the game is going to be Sean Lissamore. And once again, not with a lot of big stats, but he's going to make things happen for other guys. I got the Chargers win 34-29.
Attaboy. I'm gonna piggyback you on the defensive line, and I think we touched on it earlier. I think Dwight Freeney has a very good game tomorrow night. I really think he's going to get pressure. He's going to close the pocket up and allow other defenders to get in there. I think he's going to be very, very disruptive in trying to get to Peyton Manning. I think he's licking his chops, like Josh said earlier. This is a big game for him personally, not to mention for his team. He's going to get up, and Chargers win 38-34. It's going to be a high-scoring game. It could even go over 40, but I'm going to keep it around the 40 mark there.
Yeah, in the chat room, Portland Bolt fan brought up a good point. He said that we are 1-6 against Manning as a Bronco. So that
maybe we don't own him like we think that we do.
Yeah, but we own him when he's wearing the blue. But going into this game, I'm gonna actually take Jake's take and go with Brandon Oliver. I think, like he said, it's spot on. We have to control the ball. We have to go ahead and just keep Peyton Manning off the field. Because you see what that offense can do. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But saying that, last year we beat Peyton Manning with an inferior defense.
Yes.
And so I think we can come back and do it again. I think this team is riding – the Chargers are riding high. They're going to go ahead and take it to Mile High. And I see, again, a high-scoring game, like you said. Mm-hmm. But I got this one 45-42.
Yeah. Wow.
That's going to be a fun Thursday night game, dude.
Hey, quickly before you go, Josh, there's
an
interesting thing came up in the chat room from Bolt Pride Movement.
At Go51.
We're big fans of theirs.
At Twitter.
Is Ricardo Matthews hurt? He was nasty when he played. I think the last game he was inactive. I don't think he's hurt. I don't know why he's – because I've actually thought he played really well when he got out there.
Well, it's like we had a show with Jake not too long. I think it was last week's show where we asked him about Ricardo Matthews, and how good of a player he is. So I think he'll be on the field. He has to bring his A game too. We're going to be rotating a lot. So if he is there, he needs to be effective regardless.
Yeah.
We're so banged up, man. You don't know who's playing anymore.
Right.
So I think that this game is going to be extremely close. This is going to be a nail-biter to the end. We're going to be stressed out. We're going to be excited. There's going to be some plays made, and I think Dwight Freeney is going to make the play. Okay? I think Dwight Freeney is going to sack. He's finally going to get to Peyton Manning late in the fourth quarter. He's going to sack him, force a fumble that puts us in field goal range to win the game 27-24.
You're making this dramatic.
27-24.
Low scoring.
And I just think I think both teams are really going to try to hold on to the ball, and that's why I believe it's going to be low scoring. They're both going to try to have those long, extended 7, 8, 9 minute drives to keep each other off the field. They're going to try to give us a little, of our own, gusto right back at us. So I think it's going to be low scoring, and I think our defense and Dwight Freeney is going to make that play that's going to put us in the position to kick that field goal and win that game. Guys, we're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk some Aztecs basketball. So hang around and, let's talk some Aztecs. Aztecs.
We the new team, y'all don't get it, do ya? New squad, new year, but the same ego. New ring, new bling, check stilo. And they wanna see the show like a movie Regal. Unfair, cheat code. We go hard, Chico. State my point like the repo. Take what I'm owed like Debo. Guido, we know. In the building shooting free throws. And the show don't wear no street clothes. Getting buckets, I'ma need those home court heroes. Show so mean, no fans so clean. Chant like fiends. Okay. I'm so handsome on the beat. Band mode, right? Ransom on the beat.
Okay, you fantasy football players in San Diego, you know what time it is. It's your time on the Fantasy Corner of San Diego Sports Junkies. I'm your host, Steve-O, and thank you for tuning in every Wednesday to enjoy some fantasy football snack talk with myself and the rest of the sports junkies. Now that preseason's over, I encourage you, our valued listener, to tune in weekly for your starts and sits and my sneaky free agent pickups of each week. So throughout the week, hit me up on Twitter at FantasyCorner17, or you can email me at thefantasycorner17@gmail.com. And always stay locked in Wednesdays on the Fantasy Corner at www.SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com/fantasy. Bring it.
You need help with your business project as a dude? Maybe you need business cards to help your business stand out. We at San Diego Sports Junkies got you covered. SK Digital Imaging will do it all. Give our buddy Sean K a call, 858-408-0722. SK Digital Imaging, from business cards to the bigger project. SK Digital Imaging and our buddy Sean K will get your printing done right.
Zuma 55th, 5th, where they want to see the games with the sold out ticks, and they cheer for the dunks, but they love them kicks, and if we talking Aztecs, we talking, okay, we do it, we run it.
Welcome back, San Diego sports fans. San Diego Sports Junkies here talking about some Aztec basketball.
Aztecs?
I think we're all hyped up. We're all ready for the Aztec season to start.
Not as pumped as Josh over here. He's breakdancing in the kitchen over there.
Dude, I love this. I wish you would make another rap song. It's freaking awesome.
Tess, if you're out there, can you please cater to your fans? Thank you.
16 days away from the start of the regular season.
Sir. Counting the days, my friend.
Yeah, 16 days away for the start of the first official scrimmage game. So not the closed scrimmage with Stanford. And
that's a secret.
Oh, I'm sorry. I spilled the beans.
You shouldn't tell anybody that, Mikey. Inside info.
Yeah. So, like I said, guys, 16 days, season's coming around. Still a lot of question marks. You see a lot of Aztec articles on the local newspaper coming out. And we have some articles coming up starting Friday. Every day, 14 days before the season starts, we'll have one every day for you fans out there to get to know the team. Really quick, I mean, there's a lot of things to talk about, but first thing, obviously, the biggest question that we have to touch upon, point guard.
Right.
Point guard. So thoughts on who's the point guard? I mean, things have changed. I know at first it was De'Aaron Williams, Kevin Szabo, and Akil Quinn. Then it became Szabo was a front runner with Williams and then Trey Kell. Now it's sounding like it's Szabo and Kell.
It's
next
tough.
thing you know, it's going to be Skylar Spencer possibly starting a point guard.
You know how tough that decision's going to be on Coach Fish. I kind of feel bad for him in a way. It's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem.
We're not sitting here going, man, who do we start? We have guys to start. I liked Darrell Williams last year at times. I liked his defense more than I liked anything. When you look at a Kevin Szabo, I like to call him Szabo. I don't know what they'll say during the broadcast. But he brings a veteran type of presence in already because he's played at prep schools, and that leads you to believe he can take care of the basketball and he can be trusted with the basketball. So all indications is Kevin Szabo they love. So and we can't forget about Quinn. I do love Quinn, but is he a starter though? I know he's a senior this year, right? So
Quinn, yes.
Yeah, so you think about that and you throw that into account, do we automatically pencil him in? No, because it's not just because you're a senior you start on a basketball team. So who does Coach Fish going to trust in that role?
Well, in my opinion, and this is just leading back to last season, there was times, and why am I forgetting his name right now? Our point guard, thank you, Thames.
Okay.
There was times where Thames was battling a little bit of injuries, and Akil Quinn came in and he really took over the offense, and he did a great job facilitating the offense, I should say, and he did a great job scoring. He was very aggressive, and I think the fact that he is a senior and the fact that he has the experience already, that gives him, at least gives me, I give him my vote just because of his experience.
Right.
However, I'm not knocking these other guys as well because there's a reason why they're here. They're extremely talented,
of course.
And there's a reason why there is this conversation. So what I'm excited for is first and foremost for November to get here so we can start watching some basketball.
Agreed.
But to see where it comes out, because if you remember last year, it took probably 6-7 games into the season before our lineup finally was starting to get set. Where you'd have our sixth man. Why am I throwing a blank now?
I mean, Dwayne Pooley didn't even play against Arizona in the second game of the season.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy to even think about?
And that's what I'm getting at. I mean, Akil Quinn could start as being that point guard, but 2, 3, 4, 5 games into the season, they could shift the roster, and Szabo be leading the guys up the field. So
let me put you guys on the spot right now. If you had to give your starting 5, who would it be? Jason, what do you got?
Well, of course, we got Skylar Spencer, J.J. O'Brien, Winston Shepard. I think everybody's going to have that.
Right, returning starters.
Last year they seemed to go with four forwards and a guard. That's what their listed position was. Of course. You can't all have 4 guys crammed up at the 4 position,
Yeah.
But we basically played 4 forwards and a guard, and I think they're going to go with that again. I think they're going to go with those 3. I think Pooley, who was one of my favorite players on the team last year,
right.
And then I think Akil Quinn is starting. We're talking about opening day. That's who I think. That's the 5 guys that I have starting.
I guess I'll go next. For me, this is my opening day lineup. It's not predicated on what it will be during going into division play. But I have Spencer at the center position. I have Chol at the forward position. At the 3 spot, I have J.J. O'Brien. I'm starting Dwayne Pooley in the shooting guard position, and Winston Shepard's my point guard. Steve Fisher's going to throw out the biggest lineup, I think, in the first few games that anybody's ever seen. I think no guy would be shorter than 6'6" with that lineup that I projected. So, yes, Winston as my point guard.
I have Skylar Spencer as well at the center position. I think Angelo Chol is a definite start. I think Akil Quinn is a definite start. Winston Shepard is a definite start. And J.J. O'Brien, in my opinion. But, and this is the reason why I say this, is because I loved Dwayne Pooley coming in as that sixth man. And I think, it gave this offense a go-to guy with the second group.
A jolt.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why I believe that Dwayne Pooley will continue his six-man role, going with Spencer, Zabo, Akil Quinn, Winston Shepard, and J.J. O'Brien as my starting five.
All right. On November 7th, when Point Loma Nazarene comes to Viejas Arena, my starting five, notice who they're playing, will be Skylar Spencer, Winston Shepard, J.J. O'Brien, Dwayne Pooley, and Kevin Zabo. Because of the opponent, I think Fisher's going to let him go out there and see what the freshman can do. And just to send a message that, you know what, just because you're a freshman, you're the lowest rated freshman, you worked your butt off, you were here first summer session, and you earned that spot. And I think he's going to send a message and give them a chance to give him a chance to see what he can do.
Right. Well, that's a great way of thinking, because my thinking is we're unsure about the point guard position. So what is Coach Fish going to do? I'm going to troll out Winston Shepard, who can handle the ball, and then later in the game, I'm going to start mixing up the rotations. Which you bring up a Point Loma Nazarene. Who the hell? I mean, come on, you're going to blow them out anyway. Right. So he's going to tinker with different lineups, in my opinion. And the Winston thing is, I mean, I wrote an article early projections, probably 3 or 4 months ago. I might troll that back out because I haven't written one in 5 to 7 years. But this was my lineup, and I thought Winston might get a crack at the point guard position, and I'm sure he will at times.
Yeah.
At times in the year, but
as far as your point with Point Loma, obviously it's an exhibition game, okay? But 2 games after that, we're playing the Maui Invitational.
No, we got Utah.
Yes, the Utah game.
The Utah game, yeah, sorry.
Well, I'm looking at Maui Invitational's opening round. It has Utah and Bakersfield here at Viejas.
Oh, yeah.
Then we go to Maui for
you're right.
BYU, Pittsburgh, or Chaminade, and then the potential championship.
Okay.
So what I'm getting at is, yes, I agree with you. I think he needs to find out who they are, but he's got to kind of find it out quickly because the Maui Invitational is only 2 games after that.
Of course.
And you need to step up and really show your number 17 ranking in that invitational.
Well, that's what he kind of said earlier too. On the point where you don't know really in those early stages, because Pooley didn't even play against Arizona. I went to that game. We could have used Pooley in that game.
Right,
really.
Right.
I remember later on that's all we were talking about during the tournament is, God, look at that, and Pooley didn't even play. I remember we were doing a lot of talking about that.
Yeah, it's a big deal because, like Josh alluded to, we don't know. It's a big mystery. So many guys to troll out there, dude.
Yeah, and there's a lot of mystery going on. I feel like the team's been put on a gag order. Like there was more things coming out, and now you hear it's very limited. And one name that I know I'm excited to see, and I don't know about you guys, Malik Pope. I mean, I've mentioned him in 6'10". To me, he is Kevin Durant.
His twin.
He is Kevin Durant, and he will become that type of player. And like I said, if he is healthy, one and done. Thoughts?
I've never seen a kid with his skill set. He runs the floor like a point guard, handles the ball like a point guard, but he can dunk the ball at any given time. He can post up on people. He can take mid-range jumpers and make them. The kid's phenomenal, but he needs to get healthy and be a part of this team.
Malik Pope, Trey Kell, and I'm interested to see Matt Shrigley in his second season. Yes. We can't forget about Shrieks. No. When he came in, he was going to be, the heir apparent there from the 3-point line. Raining threes. He had his games, he had his glimmer, but it wasn't consistent enough. Can Shrigley step up and really be that man that we really hope he is? But Malik Pope and Trey Kell, all I've seen is videotape. Now I'm ready to see it on the court. I'm ready to see it at the collegiate level. What can they do? And I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, there's just so much going on. There's so many whispers you hear. Like I said, I've heard Trey Kell's name as one of the front leaders for the point guard position, which is crazy because he was such a shooter in college. In high school at St. Augustine.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot. I mean, I just want to see this team on the floor so I know what's out there.
Expected,
and November 7th can't get here soon enough.
Now,
no, it cannot.
Now, ask a question to you guys to get your opinion. Now, does Steve Fisher throw? Okay, so we get into these, Maui games, the important ones, Utah. these are important games. Does Coach Fisher trust these freshmen at the beginning and the start, or do you see more of Shriggs off the bench? Do you see more of Allen off the bench? Do you see Darrell Williams more because he's played in games rather than throwing out Kell, Zabo, because of the lack of experience in big-time games, and you protecting that 17th ranking? You can't lose an early-on game. So to you guys, what do you think happens early on?
It wouldn't surprise me if early on you see him play matchups. Talking about Utah specifically, their point guard is a first-round, possibly lottery draft pick.
He's a Naismith finalist,
yes.
right?
Award mention, so far.
Yeah.
So, you got to go ahead and find the point guard that can D this kid up.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a lot of matching up against the personnel that's out on the other side of the court, because I don't think anyone outside of our 2 through 5, they can be on the court and switch on anybody.
Well, and we kind of talked about this last show and kind of in our personal time, not during the show, but the nice thing about this roster, one, we're deeper than we were last year, and we were deep last year, okay? But we have so many options. If the team has length, we have length as big as anybody out there.
Right.
We can defend as good as anybody out there.
Right.
But if we want to go small, we can go small, and we have a ton of shooters.
Yeah, I think that's the SDSU staple now. Every time you think of a Coach Fisher team from the last 8 years, 7 years, you think of long, lengthy, athletic defenders, and they can play multiple positions. Yeah, it's going to be tough this year. And any lineup he wants to throw out there, like we've been talking for a couple years, we've gone through the different lineups. Well, we can play a big one, we can play small, we can play fast. It's really going to be interesting this season to see what transpires.
J.J. O'Brien in one of the most recent telecasts or interviews.
They did the Mountain West pregame.
He said he was really working on his conditioning in the offseason. He was running a lot. Can J.J. O'Brien be the man? And why I say that is because there's so many times where he just dominates the paint. Mm-hmm. Can he be the guy that the Aztecs can lean on late in games to be that scorer, get it to him down and low, and put the game away?
And if not him, who is it going to be? There's going to have to be somebody.
Yeah, I don't see why not. If you remember the first couple games before he hurt his hand, he was pretty dominant. I mean, against Arizona, he was pretty much, him and X were pretty much our offense, but it was a pretty equal balance between the two. Actually, I think O'Brien played better than X the first time against Arizona.
Didn't his hand injury linger all year?
Yeah,
it lingered for a big part of last year.
Yeah, so I think that will be.
I don't see him as a guy that takes over a ball game, though. J.J. O'Brien's always been the consummate, I want to say professional, but go-to guy in the middle for cleanup, put the easy buckets back in, rebounding. He's Mr. Reliable to me. Yeah, he's not the guy. He's not a Winston Shepard type that possibly or potentially could take over a game with his jump shot or just with pure athletic ability.
So then back to the question. We had X Games last year. Everybody knows that's the guy. He was the Michael Jordan of the team.
Yeah.
Who is that guy this year? Is it got to be Winston Shepard then?
It's for me. It's got to be Winston Shepard, and if not him, you have to look at Dwayne Poley as a guy that has to step up and be a guy that's going to score the basketball.
The exciting thing about this roster this year is the guys that we brought in are all scorers. And so I don't think Winston Shepard has to be the guy because we can throw so many guys out there that demand the ball and they're aggressive. And like Mikey was saying, with Malik Pope, you get him out there and he is a dominating force at 6'10" that can handle the ball, run the court. I mean, it's incredible what you see on tape, and I'm extremely excited to see what Fisher can throw out there, how many ways he can put up a starting five to limit the possessions of the opposing team.
Right.
I think for me, it is Winston Shepard. And again, an article that I recently wrote. Oh, I'm sorry, it's coming out. Sorry, I've already written it. It's just not published yet. To me, don't be surprised if Winston Shepard is a first-round draft pick. I know people are doubting it, but the amount he grew from his freshman year to sophomore year,
leap.
It was a huge leap. And if he can replicate that jump this year, then he's a first-round draft pick. We all know he needs a jump shot.
Yes.
That is fixable.
Consistent.
That is
jump shot.
fixable. It's not like he needs more athletic ability.
No.
That you can't teach.
Off the chart.
You can teach a jump shot. So if he takes that seriously and comes in this year being a better shooter, because he can get to the rim whenever he wants, then he truly becomes a dominant force, and I expect him to be that force, and I expect him to be the scoring leader of this team.
Yeah, no, and I agree. Like I said, I mean, he came in recruited by the Aztecs possibly as a one-and-done. People were talking. But for him to even be in his junior year, it's kind of a little disappointment for Winston at this point in his time in San Diego State. So, yes, he has to come out this year, be consistent with his jump shot, and that's really all he needs to improve on. His defense is fine, and sometimes his decision-making.
Decision-making and being aggressive. Yes. He even talked about in that same one with J.J. O'Brien, he talked about being aggressive and not being hesitant. You know, a lot of times he would start out aggressive. He'd be, just beyond the three-point line, and he would, take a man, right, to the baseline.
Right.
And then he would stop and then dispatch the ball to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Go to the hole.
He needs to have more confidence.
Go to the hole. If you get fouled, if you get a charge, who cares?
Right.
You have to show your aggressiveness because if not, then they can defend you knowing that you're going to pull up lame and dispatch it to somebody else. You know what I mean?
Right.
If he's aggressive, then they're going to have to defend him differently.
Yeah, and I don't know if you guys remember last year. I can't remember if it was in the tournament or some important game where he's left open for a three-pointer and he jumps up and it sinks it and it totally clinches the game.
Yeah.
It's the dagger, and so it shows to me that he has that ability to take the big shot.
Yep.
He's not afraid. He just needs to get out of his head sometimes and just be that dominant force that he can be.
Right.
So it could be a good mix of, the veterans returning from last year and the rookies coming in, that you could put two solid starting fives back to back that you can roll them out.
You can.
You know what I mean?
He has that opportunity this year.
You could have a Dwayne Poley and a Matt Shrigley be the guys, maybe with Angelo Chol in the second team, potentially.
You can mix match.
You know what I mean? You take our starting five off, you bring in Shrigley, you bring in Dwayne Poley, you bring in Angelo Chol, and you mix in a couple other forwards. And then you have your next starting five to run out there, fresh legs. The Aztecs team, defensively, Fisher has them dominating every year.
Right. They're going to bring it.
We're going to be a top defending team. One thing we tend to lack a little bit was from the scoring side, and I don't believe we're going to lack that this year.
And like I said, I think last show was there's just so many options that can be a scorer. You have Poley, you have Shepard. I mean, you have, from what I'm hearing, Skylar Spencer's got developing his post game. You have a bunch of guys: Malik Pope, Trey Kell. Can't even think of this. Shrigley can come up. But so many of us.
But for me, and last final point for me, defensively, guys, we got to remember last year there was times where we couldn't score, and defensively we took over ball games.
Right.
So remember what you're bringing back and you're adding. Chol and Spencer, twin towers in the middle. If he wants to roll out a lineup, he'll put those two in the middle against bigger teams like Kansas, Kentucky's of the world, bigger Pac-12 school. I mean, getting into the tournament talk, but that's what he can do this year. We are phenomenal defense. We better finish top 5 if we want to go where we should go, or we're talking about where we're going, which is a Final Four.
So, alluding into Supercharged here, he says, first and foremost, he loves Shepard. He will be good this year. And he says he loves for us to make a deeper run this year. And then Mikey chimed in and said Elite 8 or bust. Where do you believe the Aztecs have to be considered a successful season? Is getting to March Madness considered a successful season?
Not anymore.
Is getting the Sweet 16 for the third time a successful season? Or is it getting to Elite 8 or better? What's your opinion?
Not with your best recruiting class ever at this school. Has to be an Elite 8 or better to me, in my eyes. Have to get past that Sweet 16 mark.
Supercharged agrees with me in the chat room. Elite 8 or bust. I mean, like you said, you have to take the next step.
You have to. Eventually. The Sweet 16s are great, but you got to go.
I hate thinking the Elite Eight or bust just because.
I know you want to win it all.
Well,
okay, Elite Eight or better.
No, not even just that. But if we only get to the Sweet 16, and you don't want to look at that as a
it's still a good season.
Disappointing season,
right?
But at the same time, as the Aztecs keep making those strides. We talked all last season about. Do you remember how the basketball team was 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
True.
How awful it was.
Yeah.
But at some point, you have to make that leap. So I'm on the fence because of course, I want to say you got to make that next step
because
now.
the Sweet 16 is still really good.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Still a great year.
And that's what I was going to say is. You have as a program we're developing and changing into an elite program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to have guys that are going to transfer that are good players because that's what happens in elite programs.
Guys that aren't getting minutes.
They're not getting minutes. And I know people get scared and they're like, "No, I love that guy. I don't want him to go." But that's what the big boys deal with. And that pressure and expectations, that's what the big boys deal with. And if we want to be one of the big boys, we have to put those expectations on our program and ourselves and say, Sweet 16 is great. That's a good season.
Right.
But Elite 8 is what we're looking for at least to show that growth. And really quick, it's a tournament, so you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
I hate for it to say go 35-1 and then lose in the round of 32 and then go, oh, it was a horrible season.
That's why that high seed is very important to get.
But again, the expectation for me is Elite 8.
Yeah,
and when you talk to the players, I mean, I love their mindset. Again, alluding back to that video with Spencer and JJ O'Brien and Coach Fish, they're thinking Final Four. Yeah. We're a team that should be in the Final Four.
Competing for a national title.
Going to the preseason rankings, and I don't want to dive in it too much, but are we right where we're supposed to be, or do you think we should be higher or lower? We were number 17 in the preseason rankings. Do you think we should be higher or lower?
I think we should be higher. I think we should be in the
10
to 15
12.
range. I would say 13 would have been fair. I think we should be higher. The way I look at these programs that are being, graded or ranked is you look at what they had before returning, what they brought in, and you rank them according to that. And we brought in a great recruiting class.
Top 10.
We brought in a great transfer in Angelo Chol, and we brought back a lot of important pieces like Shepard, like Poli. And like I mentioned, I mean, we've seen this before.
They take all that into account.
Yeah,
too.
but that should be more than a 17, especially when we finished 13 last year.
I agree.
They take that a lot into account, but I still think there's an East Coast bias.
For sure, the name.
And so I think I think the Aztecs are becoming an elite program, but in the eyes of the East Coast biased, that's why we're sitting at 17.
Well,
I believe as talent-wise, like you said, 10 to 13. I think is a comfortable area where the Aztecs should be.
The only rankings that are going to matter are going into the tournament anyway. So we can talk about being slided, and we can talk about all that, but the bottom line is it really doesn't matter right now.
I will say it's a little different in basketball because rankings mean so much in recruiting.
I was going to point out.
In recruiting, players want to see, I'm going to top 25 program. That's a little different, unlike NFL power rankings where it's like whatever.
Yeah, I think the thing is though is you want to keep getting these good recruiting classes. You want to get then you do need to get to the Elite Eight. You need to take that next step if you want to keep getting
those. I think that East Coast bias is you gotta forget about that stuff because I mean now at this point this is 8 years now of very consistent basketball, and then look what it's grown into. I think we're nationally respected at this point.
Yes,
and there are a lot in the last 4 years, especially when 2 Sweet 16s in 4 years.
The thing is, though, is the Aztecs only have 8 years of history. Teams like Kansas, and
which we beat. But you know what I'm saying. But you're
even
right.
UNLV,
UNLV, whatever.
But what I'm saying is they have a lot more history of greatness than San Diego State does.
It's UNLOLV. Okay, get it right, Jason.
and it is one of those things like Kansas brought back a lot of. Kentucky brought back a lot of talent. Has one of the best recruiting classes. So I get them being number one. But I mean, for God's sakes, they brought in Drake.
Yeah,
he's terrible.
Yeah,
did you see him airball that?
Airball 3 times.
Yeah, and then he was at film session laughing it up, taking selfies. Come on, man, that guy should knock you down like a couple spots alone.
Him and Coach Calipari are like tight. I was like, man, where'd they get Drake at? That's how you recruit. That's how you recruit. And Drake will be at Midnight Madness. Come on down.
I mean, we are getting more respect, obviously, by being preseason ranked. It's just
Don't you feel that way, though?
Every time we're preseason ranked, and we have, 3 out of the last 4 years, we've been top 25 ranked before the season started. And then, probably halfway through the season, we're in the top 10. And I think we were talking about, Jason was asking me and Justin this last year, and I think we get as far as 3?
Yeah, we got up to 4.
We got up to 4? Was it 3 or 4?
Something like that.
So, I mean, obviously, we prove year in and year out we're a better team than our ranking, and I think we continue to do that this year.
Yeah, your ranking's just a number, and people don't know how we're going to respond. We don't know how UNLV is going to be. Well, I don't see any numbers thrown out and people talking about them so much.
I think the more history we have of being an elite program, the more chance we're going to have of being. It's
got to be consistent. Yeah. Be consistent.
Right. So.
All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. We want to thank everybody in the chat room, including Bolt709 that just said FML because he missed the Chargers talk, and Austin Blake, a new timer in the chat room. We're here 7 p.m. every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So jump online, join the conversation, guys. This is the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans.
By the fans.
Go Bolts!
Go Bolts!
Thank you for listening to the San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans, by the fans. Brought to you by Cali Comfort, home of the Low and Slow Barbecue, and SK Digital Imaging, with Josh Taylor, Justin Smead, Jason Eitzmo, and Mike Maciejewski. Subscribe to us on iHeartRadio, on Spreaker, and on iTunes. Visit SanDiegoSportsJunkies.com for all your Chargers, Padres, and Aztecs news.